some ethical considerations. Because when you're telling someone's story, you want to tell it the way they want it to be. It's their story, even though you're sharing it. You've got to remember it's their story. So you want to negotiate process consent. This means every step of the way you are processing their consent. This is the information that I got when we were interviewing. How do you feel that represents you? And this is while I was observing you. This was a story that you told me. So every step of the way you're processing consent. You want to assume the responsibility to protect individuals and the third parties who figure in their narratives. We talked about relationships. Maybe they don't want their grandmother talked about. Maybe they don't want the pastor talked about. So you have to assume responsibility to protect the individuals. And so, again, in that process consent, you're making sure. Now, some of these figures are very important, and you need to make sure you tell that. Telling your story without some of this would be very difficult. But you want to make sure that they are comfortable with what you're doing. Make responsible decisions concerning review of the report by the client. When you're finished, you've completed your study, that they have the ability to review it. And then fully explain to the client that you've kind of re-narrated the story in the course of analysis, and they may actually learn a lot by you doing that. They may go, that's exactly the way I felt. And you told it in a way I have never been able to really articulate. And then you want to make sure that you select clients that, with respect to the story you're telling, and then to make sure they understand the therapeutic alliance, because it's going to be very important, that whole therapeutic alliance throughout the research. Now let's talk a few minutes about survey research. Survey research is huge in quantitative aspects. You're not using a lot of survey research when it comes to qualitative, because you're not using a lot of surveys. But with survey research, it's just a very important method of measurement in social science research. What you choose is what information you're going to get. If you want information in a certain area, you're going to have to choose a survey that's going to give you that information. Data is effective for exploring trends with population, describe relationship between variables, and compare groups. So again, your surveys, your questionnaires, whatever you're using to gather data is going to give you the data in which you are purposely searching. Survey studies may fall into one of the following categories: to describe an existing phenomenon by gathering detailed information, to identify people's problems or concerns, to give good reason for and support of circumstances or practice, to make comparisons or evaluation, or determine what others are experiencing with problems or situations. Now, what do we usually use? We usually use questionnaires or interviews. That is the general data way. But questionnaires can cover a lot of information. Toward the first of the course, we talked about going to mental measurement yearbook when you are looking for questionnaires, because you want to find something that will give you the information that you need in order to be able to do your study. Questionnaires should be very developmentally appropriate. They should be self-administered by the participants, by pencil and paper or computer. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, when we're talking about doing a study, I have found it's very difficult to use the computer. People do it all the time. And it's really, I get, once a week, I get some type of questionnaire to complete for someone who's doing a study. I liked having control. I liked having my population and be able to say, I need you to complete this, 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 this. Now, we could get in depth on how you do that and maintain their confidentiality, but there are certainly ways to do that. Now, interviews are going to be with qualitative. They will be verbal, and rarely ever do you use interview with quantitative unless you're doing a mixed method for some reason. So there are two basic designs of questions and interviews. The longitudinal, that occurs over a period of time. I'm going to get you to complete this questionnaire, and 3 months from now, I'm going to get you to complete it again. Cross-sectional is taking it at the same time with different groups of individuals. Every third grader, I'm going to do this questionnaire. Longitudinal will be third grade, sixth grade, ninth grade, doing the questionnaire like that. As we talked about, longitudinal research design, it's over a period of time. And look, longitudinal studies are great. Some of the ones they have done over 40 years and gives us a lot of information. I don't know if any of you have ever watched the marshmallow experiment with children. It's an amazing video. You can look it up. And they take children about 4 years old, and individually they put them in a room and they give them a marshmallow, and they say, if you don't, I'm going to give you a few minutes and I'm going to leave the room. If you don't eat the marshmallow, then I'll give you 2 marshmallows when I come back. And it is adorable to watch these children pick up the marshmallow. They'll look at it, taste it, put it back down, look around, knowing they don't want to eat it because they'll get 2. Now, there's a few of them that will pick it up immediately and just gobble it up. But they did a long-term longitudinal study with that. Same children, when they were adolescents. And guess what? The children that could wait and had self-regulation were doing much better in school and were still more self-regulated individuals. Then they waited and did them and looked at them, studied them again in college. And they were also more successful, accomplishing more in their life. So we found from this longitudinal study, that self-regulation was huge with children. So when your child says, I want an ice cream cone, you say, that's a great idea, but first we have to do this and this and this. And when you get that done, then we'll get an ice cream cone. That is teaching them self-regulation. So there's 3 basic varieties of longitudinal. There's trend study. It's change over time with the general population. And so it's kind of what we were talking about, a trend study. And then we have a cohort, a group over time to follow a group process. Surveys representative over time to see how the individual maybe is proceeding with depression. Very more specific information. And then a panel group surveys the same individual each time with the data analysis. The problem with, and you get a little bit this mix in all longitudinal studies. The problem with doing that marshmallow study over 30 years is people die, people move, you can't find them. So you find that there's a little issue with longitudinal studies that can make things pretty difficult to follow through. Now, cross-sectional is more commonly used because data is collecting at only one point in time. Data is collected from a sample, then results are utilized for a variety of purposes. It's quickly collected and provides information about current day attitudes. Again, you can use questionnaires or you can use interviews. Steps for conducting survey research. Of course, first you got to decide what you want to learn. There are so many instruments out there. You can just pretty much survey anything. It's amazing to me what has been developed and get a numerical score for it. So you decide what you want to learn. You determine your population and sample selection procedures. You determine the survey methodology and data collection. How are you going to get these surveys to individuals? And then you develop a questionnaire or locate one. And I would certainly not say develop one. I would say locate one. You remember I told you how difficult it is to come up with a reliable, valid questionnaire? And if you develop one, you're not going to be able to generalize it to other populations because you're not going to be able to prove that it is a valid, reliable questionnaire. Now, you can always add to your study a simple demographic questionnaire that you create yourself. Because when I did my study on high school dropout, there were some other things I wanted to know. I wanted to know what was their birth order. I wanted to know the education of their parents. There are different little things that I wanted to know that did not have to be reliable or valid to be able to include in a questionnaire. Pilot test the questionnaire. You don't have to do that if you use one that's already reliable and valid. Then you administer it, you analyze it, and you write the report. But most of the time with the analyzing it, you use SPSS or some type of program to analyze the data. All right, limitations of survey research. Well, surveys are not useful for determining cause of a phenomenon. All it can do is just give you some information. Results depend on participants being truthful and accurate, reporting attitudes, opinions, and behaviors. Especially when you're working with adolescents. Are they going to be truthful? Are they really going to tell you if they are participating in drinking or doing drugs? So is it truthful? Errors of omission, confusion, or false memory are impossible to avoid. sometimes they will actually skip a question, or they just don't understand the question, or they are answering it from a biased area. So that could be a limitation. Survey data cannot substitute for experiments and analysis. And to be quite honest, I really don't know exactly what that's saying to you. I think that if you use reliable, valid instruments, it can be very important in experiments. It does require careful preparation and thinking through what you're using and what you're doing. Again, creating your own survey would be something that would be very difficult to do. So that kind of covers that on this session. Again, being a little redundant, but talking about some things in a little bit different light about narrative research and understanding the importance of using the correct type of surveys or questionnaires or even interviews.